Hi all, good morning. Okay, this is Param. Um, in this series, okay, we are seeing that what is a mapping, how to define the mapping. Okay, what are the different type of mappings are available in the Elasticsearch? Of course, what is the purpose of the mapping? Also, we have discussed in the introduction video. Okay, in this video, we will discuss about another type of another type of one type of mappings. Okay, so mapping can be two types, as I said in earlier videos. It can be dynamic mapping or it can be explicit mapping. So now we will see what is dynamic mapping. Okay, the beauty of the Elasticsearch is, okay, you no need to define anything to start your work. Yes, you don't need to do anything to start your work. If you ingest any data, it will automatically ingest and it will try to identify or detect its data type. Elasticsearch itself using some JSON parser. Okay, and it will do the appropriate indexing or analyzing whatever need to be. So that is the beauty of dynamic mappings. Okay, so in the sense dynamic for the dynamic mapping, we don't to define anything. Okay, so whatever the data you have, you just create, you straight away you can start to push your data. That is the beauty of dynamic mapping. So it is available in the Elasticsearch. But it is okay to have starting of the project or we are middle of the project something. But at the end of the project, we should not depend on dynamic mapping. Okay, we should know what are the data points and because of by that we can have many things can done, either formatting, scoring, sorting, aggregating. Okay, and what else we can do, scoring. Okay, of course saving the size. Okay, and use the query appropriate fields. So yeah, yeah, everything we can do. So that's why we will start in the dynamic mapping, but because we have to understand, right? So they about the data, even different data. Okay, so that's why, okay, we will start the dynamic mapping, but at the end we have to target the explicit mapping. Anyhow, now we will see what is a dynamic mapping. Okay, dynamic mapping is controlled by dynamic keyword. Okay, in any index, by default dynamic is true. By default dynamic is true. So that means what? So whenever you ingest some data on particular index, it will ingest it automatically. Of course, if you don't want dynamic any things, you can say the false, then you cannot ingest any data without mapping. Then if it is runtime, what does mean? The fields are available only in the runtime only. Okay, those fields are available, whatever the fields are identified by the runtime dynamic template. Okay, a dynamic template, those are available as a runtime fields. Okay, but strict, no. Now what's not, no, every field it should match. If there is one extra field, it will reject. So that is what purpose of strict. Okay, so this is the mapping parameter. Okay, as I said, we will see all the mapping parameters next some other video. Okay, this is one of the mapping parameter. It will control how the dynamic mapping has to be happened. Okay, okay, so if there is any missing or something is there, let's say some while creating or while ingesting data only, we will come to know at runtime only. That's what, at the time of indexing only we will come to know some of the error. Okay, but all these indexes are verified, validated. Okay, but if you want to get some exact things, or any some kind of runtime errors, okay, we will come to know while ingesting data itself, not defining the dynamic template. Okay, so dynamic template can be this is dynamic mapping. Sorry, let us not confuse. Okay, in the dynamic mapping there are two things. Okay, one is dynamic field. Dynamic field in the sense only based out of mapping parameters. Dynamic field mapping means it's only about the based out of the parameters, mapping parameters. Dynamic field mapping means only based on the parameter, mapping parameter. Okay, sorry. Why there is no space? What? Let it be free. Okay, so either we can do dynamic mapping sorry, dynamic field mapping or dynamic template mapping. So there are two ways are there. Okay, so as I said, we can utilize only the mapping parameters. Okay, and like date detection, dynamic date format, numeric detection, something like that. Okay, so using that, using some mapping parameter, we can define the dynamic field mapping, or else, of course, in this what is now, we don't have that much controls. Okay, let me show you some of the samples before to go there. Okay, why these many things are there, I don't know. Anyhow, dynamic mapping. Okay, uh, yeah, this is retrieving, I don't want retrieving. And dynamic template. Okay, and here, see, here I am creating a index, okay, with dynamic mapping. Sorry, with the dynamic mapping, yes, with the mappings. Okay, I am configuring only some of the parameters of mapping parameters. So by this, what I am saying, hey, don't do any date detections, something like that. Okay, or I can say something else. Here you can see here, numeric detection, please do. Date detection will do. Okay, and the date format will be like this, like this format. Okay, something like that. Okay, so this how I can defining the dynamic mapping. Okay, dynamic mapping using only the mapping parameters. As you have seen, only I have only two examples. I don't have much example. But if you go with the template, we have many examples. So by that you can understand. So it has only less customization or less control, in fact. Okay, but we can start with the dynamic field mapping also. If it is enough, then you can go. It's well and good. You can carry on your work. Actually, small mistake here. Let me correct now itself. As I said, dynamic mapping controlled by dynamic parameter should be true. So by default it is true. Okay, so if you want to explicitly disable, then only you have to declare. Otherwise, by default the value is true. Okay, in the dynamic mapping we have seen like one is the dynamic field mapping and the dynamic template mappings. Okay. Okay, so in the dynamic field mapping, what we can do, we can utilize only the mapping parameters, only some of the parameters we can use and define that. Okay, so dynamic mapping is happened at the time of index creation. Dynamic mapping is applied at the time of index creations. Okay, so that is very important one. Let me add that also. It is applied on the index creation. Index creation. Okay, dynamic mappings is can defined, right? Applied, it is defined on the index creation itself. Okay. Now, so now we have only the list customizations. In fact, if we want to do more customizations, then more customization or more control in the about the dynamic mappings. Okay, then I have to go for dynamic template. Okay, in the dynamic template, for the dynamic template, it has to be either dynamic true or runtime. So obviously it will be true. Okay, now, there are three ways to customize the dynamic template. Okay, dynamic templates is a kind of array. Okay, we can define n number of object. Okay, within that, there are three ways. In fact, I would say that there are three ways to customize or to control your dynamic mappings. Okay, one is using type, a detected type. Okay, let's say detected type may be long, float, something like that, right? So one is based on the detected type. Another one is field in a match. Using pattern, you can a regular expression expression pattern also you can match and match. Okay, or path of the JSON object array, such as path of the JSON object. Okay, so dot or the path or leaf, something like that. So there are three ways to control the control or more customization of dynamic template. So as I said, there are two ways. One is dynamic field mapping and the dynamic template mapping. Let me put mapping here. Okay, dynamic mappings. Okay, we will see each one what is what. Okay, of course there are two template variables there, so if you want to dynamically pass some value in the dynamic template, we can utilize. Okay, while ingesting data, those value get populated. Okay, while template variable is populated while ingesting data itself. These are all populated and ingest data. Okay, um, this is what at the high level. Now we will see one by one. Okay, and how we can define the APIs. Okay, here matching mapping types. Okay, so this is what I am creating one index, right? Then of course mappings is okay. We are creating index by mappings. Okay, that mappings I am applying the dynamic template. So now still I am going with the dynamic mapping, but I want to have more control on that. Okay, so that's why. So this is just name. Okay, you can give any name. Okay, so as I said, match mapping types. In this diagram I have explained, right? Match mapping types. Okay, so it's based on the it's any field in the while ingesting any data, any field, if it is a long, because of by default JSON parser, using JSON parser, Elasticsearch will try to detect the data type, right? So once if it is detected as a long, then I can map to the integer. So this is one way. Here if it is, let's say again matching mapping type, if it is string, yeah, it's again logical name, whatever you want you can give. So but so more meaningful we give a string. Okay, and so string, so you can match it to the type and the field also. So what do you want, if it is a keyword, something like that. Okay, so this got executed. Now I think I can't execute since it is already there. Okay, let me try one more time. Yeah, it's already there. Okay, so this index already there. Maybe I can put it one more things. Okay, 21, save it now. So I am created another index. Okay, another index with the dynamic template mapping to control the data types, sorry, to control the field mapping by matching data type only. So I have not used any other thing. So I applied here only the matching mapping types. Okay, so here I can define either mapping or runtimes. Those two things are possible. Okay, now we are used to mapping here. Then another one is again matching. Yes, yes, here. Now I applied two things. Now I have applied it to two criteria or two criteria, match and unmatch, right? Here you can see matching mapping type, it should be a string, and the match what is it, the variable name should be long. The field name should start with the long underscore. Okay, and if any field that does not and that should not end with the text. So whenever these two criteria matched, these three criteria, a column name, a column name or a field name should be a string. Okay, and it should start with long and it should not end with the text. Then I am setting a type as a long. Okay, so this is how we can we can use, I mean we can have more control on the dynamic mappings. Okay, then this is path. Okay, so like here you can see the path match. So what is a path match? It should start with the name as a parent, and within that whatever the, I mean, let's say I have JSONs, name should be a parent. Name can be many siblings, forget the siblings. Okay, now name should be a child, n number of child. Okay, okay, and similarly that should not middle. Okay, should not be middle. So if it's a case, I am just creating new field. This is runtime field. In fact, copy to, if this field is not indexed, so it will be available for only read only, and for query only. Okay, it will be available in the source, in fact. Okay, it will be available in the source, I'm sure. I have seen, I show you, it is available in the source, but it does not available in the indexing. I mean that field are not get indexed. Okay, so, then here, yeah, here using the same match and matching types, I am defining a runtime field. So runtime field means this value will be there in underscore source, but it does not get indexed. So still we can query. Okay, so this is what I said, template variable. Okay, template variables, there are two variables, is there, name and the dog types. Okay, This is the, say, I'll say, should be a string. It can be any field name, can be anything. Okay, but if it is string, I'm matching the strings, and that field name I'm applying as analyzer. So the best example is the English here. Okay, so I want to apply the English or Chinese analyzer, then I can use that word here, right? So I have example here in just data. Yeah, not this one. Let's go to body. Yeah. So for field name, so English. Okay, so that means the English parts will be applied. Then doc type values. Okay, this is a count. So this will be taken and that. Okay, I don't know where I was. Now let me go to that. Template variable. Yes. Let me close other stuff. Save changes. Save changes. Okay. Here dog types, so type of data type of the field also dynamically I can decide. Say here, if this is not be dog types. Okay, I think you might have seen that value as well. Okay, again I have to open yes, count is a value. Okay, what the data, what would be data type? Of course I give us a 5. So they JSON parser detect as a long. Okay, by default it is a long. So okay, that long is applied here. So data type for matching mapping types in any field, I make it as a long. Okay, so this is useful. Here you can see the doc value is 0. Doc value I have put 0. So what is the advantage is now the value is not indexed, but still it is there for aggregation purpose. Okay, so some space is reduced. Okay, so this is how you can define the many index with the dynamic template. Okay, uh, okay, so you can verify that. Okay, so here I'm ingesting the data in the particular index. Okay, so here you can see that in index creation by dynamic template. Yeah, I ingest the data on index who's dynamically created. Okay, so here I'm just ingesting the data. Where is the body? Okay, so it will be matched out accordingly. Okay, the data will be pushed. Okay, this are all stuff. This is how we will inject the data. Okay, if you want to check the how the schema is there, right, how this is matched. Okay, then you can query here. This is for like retrieving data. Okay, now do you want to that you want to see the mapping, how it is different, right? Where should I go? Where should I go? Just mapping query. Let me come. There is a template. Yeah, here itself I have put, yes, here itself. Okay, so say I have such an index. Okay, I want to get the its mapping after pushing data. Okay, how it is matched, in fact, how the data types are matched exactly. Okay, so I can see that here along with the mapping and what are the properties are there. So this is the mapping, of course I gave. Okay, here you can see the property. So create is a type field, it treated as a date, and the format, this is what. Okay, so if I go to any another stuff, what is this here? Okay, I don't know, match. Okay, yes, here let's see. So here you can see by pulling the schema of particular index, we can see the what the mapping we have given and how it is matched to our field. Okay, so this field I gave, so it taken as a testing. I gave us this is a field I gave, this is as a long. That's how. Okay, you can define here. You can see here itself, right? Just start long with then I type string. Okay. Okay, so this is how you can have more control. So there are, yes, let's go to the diagram here. Okay, yeah, this one. Okay, so this is what. So let me recall it. Okay, so we can create dynamic mapping. Okay, whenever we want to have more controls. Okay, sorry, not more controls. We are starting the project. Okay, so it can be two types. One is dynamic field mapping. Okay, let me put in bold. Dynamic field mappings. Another one is dynamic template mapping. Okay, template mapping. So okay, dynamic template mappings. If I want to, in the dynamic field mappings, I can define my mapping only based out of given mapping parameters. So there are a couple of parameters are there. Okay, so I have given some samples. So if I want to have more control in the dynamic template, then I can utilize either one of these conditions. Okay, so either one of these criteria or field or matching. Okay, so then I can define data types or runtime fields how I want. Okay, so I think I have explained to you with the demo as well. So, okay, again, so all these are support on the support. So we can define the mapping itself if it is work, if you want to do indexing, or if you don't want to do indexing, then you can make it as a runtime. Okay, and then some of the value we can pass dynamically, that is data type and some of the values. Okay, so the name means it's a field, by the field names is going to apply. Okay, apply in that template. Then dark type is of course whatever data type detected, and that value can be populated. So these two values, these two namespace, even placeholder, they call it as a placeholder. Okay, you can put you can put them in your dynamic template and use that. Okay, I think I have covered. Let me check if I have missed anything. Okay. Uh, so of course there is a default rule. Okay, one thing I want to tell you, the elasticsearch use JSON parser to detect the data type, right? So it will always go for wider, say let's say 25.0, so it can be float, right? But it will detect as a tuple. Similarly, values 33, it can be integer, but it will take it as a long, so it will always go for wider data types. But if you want to because it does not know, right? So that's why for the safety purpose they are going for wider data type. If you want, you can redefine. Okay, so that's why, see, whenever that's why the thing is, whenever you want to have more control, you go for explicit mapping, not dynamic mapping. Okay, now we are discussing only dynamic mapping. Okay, there are dynamic mapping in itself two types: dynamic field mapping, dynamic template mapping. Let me put this way, it looks good, right? Okay, I think it's little bit, let me more space. Okay, then similarly, if it is string, okay, if it is string, first it will try to identify date directions. If it is really date, if it does not, if it is not date, then it will try numerical detections, either float or long, something like that, or double, something like that. Okay, if it does not match with either one, date detection as well as numeric detections. Okay, it does not match any date detection or numeric detection, then it will treat as a string keyword. That is what default behavior for string field. By default it will not take it as text. Okay, of course text to me text field only we can apply analyzer, right? So if you want to do more analysis in your text field, then you have to be careful. I mean, you have to explicitly define the data type. Otherwise by default it will take keyword. So keyword means full text search, it is not partial word. Let's say if it is a username should be param, it will check only param. If it is not, it will not return paramasivam or param space shivam, so it will not return. Okay, something like that. Okay, so it will look for full text if it's a keyword, then only it will returns. Okay, um okay, I think I have explained data detections. Disable detection. Of course, if you want to disable data detections, you can do it because of this true or false. Okay, right? So you can do true or false. Okay, dynamic format. As I said, it's, several. Even I shown my sample also. Dynamic date format. So what is the DDD, YY, or YY, DDD, whatever it is. So different combinations you can give it that. And similarly, numeric detections. Okay, I think I have explained that also. Now, in the template perspectives, we have, as I see, three things are there. Okay, to placeholders, specific placeholders. Okay, so that is what. Okay, let me mapping in the mapping specification. Template variables. Oh, control G. Okay, now field mappings can. Okay, yeah, dynamic field mappings. Okay, there is one important things I have to tell you. It should be non-null value. Okay, It should be a non-null value. So of course we are defining a dynamic field as a dynamic map. We are dependent on the dynamic mappings. So what they are saying is, the value should be non-null for any fields. Okay, otherwise it will simply ignore that record itself. Okay, so that's why. So when it get first non-null value, then after that it will keep that. So either indexing or something like that. So it should be non-null values. I mean, dynamics, it will work for only non-null values. Works for only non-null value. Okay, for dynamic mapping. Okay, so okay then. Match, math, all these things are explained. Template variable explained. Dynamic template examples. Okay, of course I have shown dynamic template explain in English, right? I shown the examples. Okay. Yeah, norms. I forgot to tell you the norms. Okay. um, mm, 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 mm. Norms is uh, one of the mapping parameters. Here you can see here. Okay, yeah, norms is one of the parameters. Okay, if it is set true or false, something like that. Okay, accordingly scoring of the each field is stored. If you say, let's say, yeah, you don't want, you don't need to worry about the scoring means, then you can set norms as false. So by setting false, what will happen, it will not store any value about the norms. That means scoring value is not stored. It saves some space, right? So otherwise the scoring value will be saved. But of course the scoring value is important, right? When we do sorting or aggregating no need. So but if you are going for sorting, scoring value important. Even scoring values will give the more meaningful relevance, right? Scoring value will give the more relevance. Okay, so relevance, if, it's depend upon use case. Okay, in case in your use case you are not caring about the scoring means how much relevance. Okay, if you are not interested, then you can use the norms value set false. Then what will happen is scoring value will not be stored in the while indexing, so some spaces are will be saved. That's it. Okay. Then one more thing is what is now, if it is time series data. Okay, if it is time series data, it will have only number, right? Okay, yes, it will have only numbers. Okay, of course we will do only the aggregation. Okay, we don't in the time series data, we are not doing anything else. We are doing only aggregation means. Okay, if it is only aggregation means, what we can do now, we can disable the indexing itself, all the numeric field. Let's say we have some numerical field, we can disable the indexing. By disable the indexing, what is now, so it will save the some space, but still values are there. Okay, we are going to aggregate, right? So we are going to do we are going to do only aggregation on the time series data, since those are numerical value. So by this we can save some data, so that is that some save some space in the hard disk storage cost. Okay, that's all. Okay, that's all about that. That's all about the dynamic mapping. So it's up to us. Okay, either where is index field? Yeah, இங்க இருக்கு. Okay, so we can say true or false. So by this we can save some space at least. Okay, norms also true or false, right? By using norms we can see now, by using norms we can save the space, some cost or saving cost, but we will missing the scoring value. So of course in your use case you don't want scoring, we can go for, we can disable the norms. Similarly, if you're doing only for aggregation on your numerical fields, then that also, then the indexing itself we can disable for that field. So only the aggregations will happen. So in this case also some space will be saved. Okay. These values, I think, not only for the dynamic template, you can apply for explicit template, explicit template as well. We will see in the how what is explicit template, how we have to define. But of course, the target for in any project, our target is explicit mapping, not implicit, not dynamic mappings. Okay, we can start with the dynamic mapping. To start any project, start with the dynamic mapping. Then once understand all the data points, field data type values, target the explicit mapping, so that will have more control, more performance, more tweakings. These are the advantages of that. Okay, thanks for watching. So I think I have explained all the stuff as much as possible, and I have shown the demo as well. Thank you. If you like the video, please like and leave the comment, subscribe my channel, share it with friends. Okay, thank you. Let me close this flow. Let me close this flow.